To me, this is not just another nation. It is not just one of the family of nations. This is a nation with a great mission to perform for the benefit of liberty-loving people everywhere.
That we shall be as a city upon a hill.
These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of his country.
You've come to fight as free men. Free men you are. What will you do without freedom?
Proclaim liberty throughout all the land.
In one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. You gotta fight for your right. Can you dig it?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another edition of Real News Shine. We're doing it big on a Monday morning this morning, buddy. I am so excited. I'm beyond elated. I don't even have the words for it out right now. Mr. Henry has ran out of words, Shine. I don't even know what to do about this, but we're live at 9 a.m. Central Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time on a Monday morning. I guess we should go by the Eastern Time because that's where all the cool kids are, bro. It's on the Eastern Time. That's right, man. Real News, brand new video.
I mean, who's in Central Time?
Right?
I mean, only Mr. Henry.
Yeah,
but hey,
man,
good morning, everybody.
How's it going? I feel like I'm getting a little bit of echo from you for some reason. I'm not sure where that's coming from, maybe.
You are. I'm figuring it out.
Oh, no worries.
Just go ahead and
no
talk
worries.
for a little bit.
Hey, by the way, my name is Mr. Henry. I go by Mr. Henry. My real first name is Grant, for those that actually care, which is probably nobody. David Shine Thompson sitting on the other side of the screen from me there. By the way, shout out to all the folks in the Facebook we see already. Kelly, Victoria's in there. Jeff's in there. Judy's in there. This is my favorite part of the show every single morning. Greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment here. Let us know what you're thankful for. We call it the greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment because we are appreciative of you all. We're appreciative of building this community. We're appreciative of you coming and hanging out and joining in this programming with us and what we're trying to do. And just for those that may be joining us new or watching for the first time ever, what it is that we're trying to do here is more than just some news program or a podcast or a morning show, or I don't even know what you want to call this because it's something much greater than that. We're trying to build a massive community so we can live life with each other beyond this crisis right now and get through the crisis that we're currently going through as well, right? We want to be able to build this community with each other, share stories of encouragement, make sure that everybody has something to look on and look forward to and grow within. So in that vein, this segment in particular, let us know how you're doing, man. Let us know what you're struggling with. Let us know if you need any prayer concerns, if you have a praise, if you have some word of encouragement for somebody, any of that type of stuff, throw in the comment section right now. We love getting to that. Or just message myself in particular, message David Shine Thompson over there as well, or you can message the Real News message board as well if you want us to bring some of that up on the show. And another thing here, one thing we always like to do also, any businesses that are out there that are trying to innovate. I actually got a story about this, Sean. Any businesses that are trying to innovate to help people. We say this all the time. The next tradable commodity, I personally believe, is going to be one of trust, which is a weird thing to say, thinking that you can trade something that's kind of an intangible, but it's always been that way. I think it's going to be more that way now than ever has been in the past. And here's what I mean, man, is I don't know. You got some businesses that are trying to stay alive. Tell us about them, how they're innovating. We'd love to bring them on this program. My wife, by the way, was at, and I'm sure a lot of shopping places are like this now, but she was at Aldi's, which I believe, Sean, is a German-based, smaller sort of grocery store, if you will. It's a very, very small, condensed version, like one small section of Kroger with limited selection. Take it that way.
It's like the size of a Walgreens.
Yeah, that's right. It's about the size of a Walgreens. But let's see here at the Aldi's, they have this situation where lining up outside, like a lot of stores do right now, they have 6 feet spacers in between each individual there. And in those 6 feet spacers, you then go into the store itself, and each aisle is designated where you can only go one way up, one way down, one way up, one way down, to maintain distancing from people. And also when you get to the cashier at the end, they have this big sort of plexiglass shield around that individual. So there's no exchanging of fluids or anything else that could be. So this is what I'm talking about, man. If you can find businesses that are trying to innovate, if you know of innovative ways that other businesses can say, help with that, or bring that to our attention. We'd love to have them on the program, love to have them on the show. Just see if we can get the word out, man, help people survive and actually shine. In that vein, of helping people survive, of people tinging on frustration here, man. That's primarily what this show is going to be about today. Going over some COVID-19 numbers, but we also have these massive protests going on around the country, man. And Sean, I'm sure we're still
even here in East Tennessee, we saw that all day yesterday. It was on WBIR, WATE, Knox News Sentinel, all covered those free TN protests, but they were happening all over the country. I mean, that was basically the weekend news cycle, was the open up the country protests that were happening everywhere.
And let me play a quick clip here from this is Kim Edwards. You're about to hear from this reporting, I believe, is coming from. I'll look up the reporting agency here in a second. But this is part of the protesting that was happening here in downtown Nashville. Let me just make sure this is good to go. Yeah, this happened over the weekend, and then I have a Vox story that I want to get to, bro. That is just like it's just irresponsible as far as I'm concerned. Here's Nashville.
Par for the course for Vox.
Yes. And by the way, this video format, that's Tennesseans' fault. They have nothing to do with this small little letterbox thing. That's just take it up with them. Here it is.
Free Tennessee!
Free Tennessee! Who's ready for Tennessee to open up?
Everybody!
I'm sorry, who's ready for Tennessee to open up?
Everybody!
Y'all, I want to thank you so much for being courageous, for coming out here, for fighting for the God-given rights that you have, that our Constitution protects. I want to thank you for your signs, I want to thank you for your bravery, and I want to thank you for putting your trust in the group and for showing up. It's scary, but what's scarier is a life without our freedom.
Amen!
So let's make some noise that the governor can't unhear. Let's make some noise that all of Tennessee cannot ignore, and let's show them that we are ready for our freedom.
Open up Tennessee. There it is right there. Hey, quick shout out to Kelly on the Facebook, by the way. Shine talking about the same things she's thankful for. It's Kelly's anniversary. Said she's thankful for her husband. He's pretty stinking awesome, she says. Hey, that's
so
About,
nice. That's so sweet. Look at her go. Whoa.
So look, that was a quick clip from some of the protests, if you want to call them that happened here in Nashville over the weekend. And look, I don't want to bury the lead here. Vox has an article out right now that I just need to get off my chest, because I do this from time to time, Sean, and I sometimes wonder, am I missing something? Like, have I become so biased or so inundated with a particular style of coverage or something that I'm missing the point here? Vox has an article here entitled, What the Anti-Stay-at-Home Protests Are Really About. What the anti-stay-at-home protests are really about. And the basic assumption of this article, I'll read the language.
Yeah, they just started, and obviously Vox knows what these people are really saying, not what they're actually saying. Obviously Vox is able to, like, peer through their minds and figure out what the real underlying agenda is, even though it started like 2 seconds ago. And I bet they're not actually quoting anybody in order to make this assumption, I would assume. So, like, just on the front end, if they want to frame it by saying what they're really thinking, I'll go ahead and frame the reporting and say you have no idea what they're really thinking, and you're not going to provide any evidence whatsoever. And I know that because you're Vox. How about that?
That's
is
basically,
that basically the whole article? Hey, I should be an editor at Vox. I know exactly how they work. I know exactly how they work.
Here's the exact language, and I'll give my opinion after I read this here. I won't give my opinion first because I want people to formulate their own as they're going through this, right? But here's the Vox reporting based upon these protests that happen nationwide. Nashville, one of them in particular. They go on to say the displays, obviously meaning these protests, the displays are tapping into Trump's main message on the coronavirus pandemic. What is that message? I'm asking that question. Here's the message, so says Fox. Governors are to blame for the crisis, not him. As the president ratchets up his reelection efforts, his arguments is an effort to simultaneously put the brunt of responsibility for the coronavirus catastrophe on the shoulders of his political opponents, while also maintaining that he holds, quote, total authority over the pandemic and the states that are facing it. Pause. So you see this thing that they're already setting up. Shine just mentioned a second ago. Vox is trying to play off this sort of juxtaposition of Trump being able to have his cake and eat it too. He wants to have total authority, but also be able to blame the governors as well. Now, you're already, if your wheels are spinning here, you're already starting to formulate a response and a problem with that of it primarily being, wait a second, didn't other states have Republican governors that were protesting? Don't think about that too much yet. can't throw logic into this yet. Let me continue with the Vox article saying it's an argument that resonates best in rural, redder parts of the country, which have not been hit as hard by the pandemic as blue urban areas. Trump himself has said, quote, "We'll be opening some states much sooner than others, despite pushback from legislators and business leaders alike." They go on to say, it's a message of division designed to pit Republican voting areas of states against their Democrat voting neighbors, even rural Republicans against urban Republicans. Finalizing this whole statement, Fox goes on to say, for some on the right, the plan seems simple: vilify Democrat governors and agitate it for the end of the shutdown orders, then reopen the economy and spur a massive turnaround in the nation's economic prospects just in time for Trump to be reelected in November. If the pandemic recedes, he can claim that he was entirely responsible. But if the people continue to die, he can place blame on Democrat governors. Now, Chime, the only state that they mention are the Democrat-controlled states. The only states that they mention here, the ones that are doing these protests, are the ones that have Democrat governors. This is what I find. This is what I say was irresponsible. Vox used to be an article that a publication I would go to fairly often.
Irresponsible would assume that they actually knew that they were going on in other states. They may not have even done the research to find out if they were going on in non-Democratic governor states. They may have just said that and not checked on it at all because it fits their narrative. Because obviously here, we don't have a Democratic governor and there were protests all over the state. Right, but dude? That's not irresponsible. I think they're just ignorant people who have an idea in their head based on no facts and tell this story. They just love telling stories that have nothing to do with reality. Like that has nothing to do with reality, what you read there. And it's built on foundations of things that are not true. Even though there is truth in there, like there were protests. Trump may try to slough some responsibility off. Yeah, that's a good guess, I guess. But that hasn't happened. And it's really weird the way Vox does this kind of stuff, because it's obviously not true. No. I mean, they're protesting in Oregon and Washington.
Dude, right?
You know, I guess those are Democratic governor states, but they're protesting everywhere.
Well, but see, that's the interesting thing, Sean. You can hit these half and half. Okay, so if you take Michigan and Wisconsin, fine, you have Democrat governors over there. But if you're talking about, there was protests in Indiana, Texas, and Tennessee. So if you throw North Carolina in there, you have what? Michigan, Wisconsin, North Carolina that we have confirmed protests on right now, Democrat controlled, and then you have Indiana, Kentucky, Texas, and Tennessee. Too. Kentucky might have been one, right? But that's another Democrat out there. So what do you have? 4-3, 3-3? It's a pretty even split is the point that I'm making. And the entirety of the way the Vox is reporting on this, that there's some, I don't know, underlying plan or scheme behind this entire thing to throw Democrat governors under the bus so Trump can have his cake and eat it too type scenario is grossly, I'll tell you this, it's not just irresponsible. It does a disservice to every single individual in either one of those states, Democrat or Republican controlled. Do you get what I'm saying, buddy? It's this thing that somehow Republicans in the country are so there's no way, they're so inept. They have no way to organize something like this unless they're trying to pull off some ploy for the Trump agenda. And conversely, Democrats can do nothing on their own unless they're trying to fight against some strange conspiracy theory of Trump trying to throw Democrat governors under the bus. This is nonsense, bro. This is absolute nonsense, okay? Not everything has to do with what Trump is or is not saying. Sometimes it just has to do on a case-by-case basis, a state-by-state basis. This is why I've been trying to say from day one, man, pay attention to the way that our governors handle this as opposed to Michigan. It's different states. It's different localities. It's difference in demographic breakdown and buildup and everything else, man. This is why, again, I think the proper solution for all of this stuff is to start as local as possible and then move outwards. I don't understand any other way to look at this, because now if Vox is saying he needs to maintain total authority and put the entire blame off on governors. Which governors, dude? The Republicans and the Democrat governors? How is that a strategy for anybody? How is that
let me rewrite this article real quick. This is what the author really meant. Based on the current circumstances and what people are doing and what decisions are being made and who is making the decisions, nobody I like will get any credit for anything good. And everybody that I do like will only get blame. So that's basically what he was saying. And he was he or she was complaining about it. People I do not like are going to get credit. People I do like are not, and possibly get blame. And it's a conspiracy. Get it? I just summarized the whole article. The whole article is people I'll say it again, and I know I'm repeating myself. I don't care. because you need to know. This is how these people write. This is what they do with their time. And I really feel like it's accidental or not on purpose. I think they're just really not in touch with their biases at all, and they feel like they're being objective. But to me, it screams people I don't like are going to get credit. People I do like are not and are going to possibly get blame, and it's a conspiracy. Yeah. That's it. And it's really unfortunate that someone who writes something like that calls it news and not a hobby. Because that's basically what that is. That's a propaganda hobby. That's not news. What they're really about. In fact, that is I'll just give you a little internet clue. If you see a video or an article that says whatever is really about, whatever is really about, it's probably propaganda, even if it's on the right. If you see a video that says what the blank is really about, it's not news. What it is going to be a vomit opinion of a highly biased person. That's exactly what it's going to be, whether it's on the right or left. And they know that. That's a popular way to tag articles, to say what it's really about.
Yes, exactly, man. And that's part of the reason why I bring up these kinds of stories in the way that I do, because I want to make sure that I'm not being too biased, that I'm not reading into these headlines, that I'm seeing clearly I'm not, if you don't want to call it propaganda or gaslighting, that's fine. You don't have to call it either one of those, but you do have to recognize it for what it is sometimes, okay? Of being disingenuous and being dishonest. And that's why I'm pausing on what you're seeing on the screen right now. So part of the evidence that Vox is going to use to say that the only reason why people are protesting out there right now is by some scheme that Donald Trump is playing here to throw Democrat governors under the bus here. Part of the evidence they use is this tweet that you're seeing right here, liberate Michigan. And tell me if I'm wrong, Real News chat section, or tell me if I'm wrong, Shine. But didn't he say liberate like multiple states? I mean, now this is not me making commentary on whether the whole liberate fill-in state.
I think he mentioned Michigan and one other. I can't remember. I think he talked about New Jersey, but I don't know. I know Michigan and Virginia that were in that tweet that he tweeted over the weekend.
And that's what I'm saying, man, is if Trump is just saying liberate Democrat-controlled states, then where did the groundswell come from to liberate the Republican states as well? It doesn't seem to be helping that cause. Unless Trump supporters just didn't get the message somehow, right? Unless they just didn't get the message somehow saying like, by the way, you shouldn't be out there, protesting Bill Lee. Speaking of Bill Lee, back to the thing that happened in Tennessee, I'm pretty sure, Shine, I think I can say this definitively now. Let me pause for a second just to say, when I say this word, let's see if the Facebook algorithm will pick up on it and actually shut down this stream.
Let me throw this out there too. What's so funny is they think, and they're often insulting everyone by doing this, that Donald Trump wags the dog and not the other way around.
Yes.
Why doesn't anyone look at it like he's following the people as opposed to the people are following him? Because I really feel like Donald Trump was late to the party on the... there had been people, for weeks saying, let's get the economy open, let's organize, blah, 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 blah. He's been behind those people, not out in front of them. He's not leading them. He's throwing them fanfare as they walk by. And if you were someone who really knew what was going on, someone who really paid attention, like if you were, I don't know, someone who worked at Vox and got paid $60,000 a year to complain on the computer, maybe if you were one of those people, then you would know that Donald Trump is not wagging the dog. The dog is wagging him. And am I right here? Do you think people really went out and protested this weekend, planned these protests within the few hours after Donald Trump tweeted? Is that what people think? Or that, if you're going to do these nationwide protests, they started planning these a couple weeks ago, guaranteed. As someone who works in political activism, you don't put together a protest in a few hours. You put them together over the course of a month or longer. And you have to work out a whole look at the coordination. They did it on the same day in multiple cities. That takes coordination. That takes a lot of preparation. What kind of idiots really believe that people went out and protested because Donald Trump sent a tweet earlier this week? This is what I mean. Liars. And they feign ignorance by writing this stuff like, oh, how would I know that? Well, you should. You get paid $60,000 to sit at a computer and try to tell people what's important. And you do a terrible job at it. And I know I'm a little bit negative this morning, but I really don't like Vox. You can blame Mr. Henry for bringing a Vox article into this show. Because I just don't like them at all. They try to take down my boy PewDiePie. Not
and,
cool.
and I will say, man, what Sean is mentioning, obviously, is Vox is a totally different story. But PewDiePie is someone that people should be paying attention to him. I'm telling you that style of format of what people are doing there, PewDiePie, Ninja, all those folks. I think that's the next paradigm. Totally different conversation. In Tennessee, though, man, it's getting difficult to even discover what proper reporting is, though. And I say that because look, News Channel 5, I'm reading from it right now, reported that quote dozens of people were at this protest in Tennessee. And again, here's the test for us right now, trying to see if the Facebook algorithm is going to work and shut us down or not. But it's hashtag free Tennessee. I'm pretty sure hashtag free Tennessee. Did we just stutter on your screens? I don't know. Let's check it out. News Channel 5 at these hashtag free Tennessee protests over the weekend reported that quote dozens of people were there. Here's their words: dozens of people gathered at the Tennessee Capitol demanding Governor Lee's quote stay-at-home order be lifted. Many of them chanted and held signs saying they want to go back to work. Some of the protesters practiced social distancing by staying in their cars and driving around the state capitol in downtown Nashville, waving signs and honking their horns. The coronavirus pandemic has shuttered the nation's economy, going on to list some of the numbers. However, here's how the Tennessean reports this, okay? Tennessean reports that some hugged and offered, this is how they started. This is the beginning of their paragraph reporting, okay?
Some hugged, burned them.
And offered each other a kiss on the cheek. Others shook hands and smiled. More than 300 people brushed elbows or bumped knees. Their demonstration posters and American flags waving. Almost no one wore masks. They chanted together, "Open up Tennessee, open up Tennessee." And they said this wasn't the only area. It was in Knoxville, Chattanooga, Jackson, and Memphis, where similar styles of hashtag free Tennessee rallies to express their grievances happened as well. So it's like, bro, okay, News Channel 5 and Tennessean, I obviously understand the bias behind each one of them. But if you haven't been in media, or if you don't follow this stuff dynamically enough, if you're just out there Googling what happened in Tennessee over the weekend, bro, which story do you go off of here? Is it that 300 people were hugging and kissing each other with a pandemic going on? Or was it that dozens of people were there protesting, practicing proper social distancing and honking in their cars? Like, which one is there? Which one is it? And when you go to the Vox story, is it just that they're protesting Democrat governors? Did nothing happen in Tennessee at all? You know what I'm saying, man? We got a problem on top of a problem here.
It's, it was a bad weekend for messaging for people, for large groups of people over the weekend. This was not the only case where it's like they have to end up sounding ridiculous to take a certain position. This is not the only time this happened. I mean, we'll start with this one. I can throw in some other examples. I don't want to muddy the water. But this was an example where they just wanted to talk bad about the president, even though the president had nothing to do with these protests, except that he might be sympathetic. He had nothing to do with them. But they brought, instead of actually covering the protest and saying, what do these people want, and why do they want it, and when do they want it, and what would make them back off a little bit? What would make, you know what I'm saying? Like trying to understand what happened this weekend, like a real reporter would, who, what, where, when, why. What they did was do a story about the president. And because the story had nothing to do with the president and they tried to shoehorn him into this story, it ends up not making any sense. Because they had to add in all these narrative things that fit with their Overton window of acceptability when it comes to the president and their narrative that they've been building over the past couple weeks. But the reason the story doesn't make sense is the president doesn't belong in a story about these protests. It needs to be about the protesters. Why didn't someone interview one of these people and say, what do you want? Why are you here? What are, you know what a really good question would be? So what do you feel like is proper social distancing? As you're out here and you're protesting, what are the rules? Like, go to one of the organizers and say, so what are you telling people? Are you saying stay 6 feet apart? Are you saying don't touch each other? Did you encourage everyone to wear masks and gloves? I mean, is this in any kind of way? Are you doing anything for charity with this? I mean, what is your aim? What are you doing? Find out everything about the protest. That's what a good on-the-ground reporter would do. But to be totally fair, when have you ever seen a reporter on the ground in the past 5 years? They're all in these studios. It's all panel news. I mean, and there is no news channel that does on the ground. They do stand-up shots at political events. That's it, like political rallies and things like that. But they don't do stand-ups on Fifth Avenue. They don't do stand-ups down at the Capitol, at least not national news. Now, some of our great local news people do. Well, they'll go out and interview people. But it would have been very smart for a national news station or a newspaper maybe to go out to some of these protests, and instead of talking to them about Donald Trump or the right or something like that, just ask them what they're doing there and what they want and what their safety protocols are. Then you could write the article based on knowledge and not guessing or propagandizing.
And I'll tell you, I'm not even at this point. We're not even giving our opinion necessarily on the validity, not even the validity, but the basic notions behind the protests themselves, why they happen, how they're happening. Frankly speaking, it seems to me at this point, man, like the protest, I personally believe, if they were going to be there, probably should have happened a few weeks back. And I only say that because as it happens right now, for it to make an effect on the news cycle, we're 10 days away from the stated end date of when Governor Lee said that he's going to reopen the economy. Now, here's the important thing behind that, okay? Even as I'm saying that right now, people are thinking, well, yeah, I guess that's a good point, Mr. Henry. We're only 10 days away, so why do it now? I mean, 9 days away, basically. Why do it right now? If on April 1st or May 30th, whatever, we're going to open the economy again. Sorry, April 30th, May 1st. You know what I'm saying? If we're going to reopen the economy, and that's already the stated end goal, was 9 days going to make a difference? Just let them do it, and then you won't have to get all in a hizzy about the stuff. Well, look, man, there needs to be an aspect of accountability. Accountability properly applied actually indicates that there's something done prior to that decision being made, fully being made. Because you see kind of what's been happening up until this point, Shine, right? We've had these sort of like 2-week rollouts and reintroductions and rollouts and reintroductions. That's how this has gone. And we've now all become sort of comfortable with a 2-week phasing. A 2-week phasing, okay, where you do it for 2 weeks, you get comfortable, you hope and pray that something's going to happen, and then you do it for 2 more weeks, and then you hope and pray and do it for 2 more weeks. Okay, now Kim Edwards was interviewed. The lady that we played the video clip from the very beginning of the show. If I need to play that again, let me know. We'll get back into it. But they asked her. They said she's a Nashville mom of 3. Her husband is a music DJ for events and weddings or whatever. The couple rents out a house and Airbnb for extra income, and neither at this point is bringing in money due to this coronavirus related shutdowns. Now, her family was ready to tough it out for a while. She said, but thought that this could continue for basically until they have a valid vaccine ready. And she said that's going to be too long of a wait. If they're talking 12 to 18 months until some type of herd immunity or vaccine is ready, I simply can't do that, she's saying. There's no way that I can function. There's no way that I can economically survive to wait another 12 months of whatever this is. So she said she no longer wants to see the economy crippled by social distancing. She wants to be responsible for her own family's well-being, and she wants the right to peaceably assemble to demonstrate that freedom. So she moved to take this stand, and that was her response to this whole thing. It's like she's basically saying, I don't have another option. Okay, now, whether you feel that that's the proper thing medically to do or not, I don't know. Okay, I think that's still up for debate, and we can have that conversation. Right now, though, Shine, for the point of covering it this morning, what I think is proper to primarily focus on currently is, dude, if it's happening in your state, talk to those people, exactly like Shine said. Find the people on the ground. Get their personal takes on it. Understand why they're doing it. Be convinced or convince your fellow man one way or another. If it's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, hear them out with what their economic concerns are. Because this reporting, y'all, it's nonsense, okay? It's too much to take. If News Channel 5 tells me that dozens of people were there maintaining proper social distancing and most of them were in their cars, and the Tennessean reports that there's 300 people there hugging and kissing on each other, I don't know. What am I supposed to do with that? And if Vox tells me that it's just Democrat governors, I don't know. And then I go to this entirely unrelated story, Shine, slightly related as well. I think everybody is having a problem right now trying to decipher not just truth, but proper reporting. And I think everybody is being exposed a little bit here, man. Look at this reporting from Bill Maher right now. This is when he's interviewing Congressman.
Do you mean
Crenshaw,
like people in the media are being exposed, or regular people,
dude,
or politicians? What do you mean?
I mean, regular people in the media, and this is something that you and I have spoken about for a while, but Shine has really been pushing on the show quite a bit of. It's extremely interesting to see that when the playing field is leveled, so to speak, meaning that when everybody has to use Zoom, when everybody has to use Skype, there's not 200 people on a team working together to write your material, to write the script, to approve it ahead of time, to get jokes that are literally, I don't know, tested by some type of team that goes in a room and responds
like
to how these jokes
testing the jokes and
Yes.
stuff. Yeah, and
When you don't
everybody's using Zoom, by the way. NBC,
Right?
ABC, Fox News, that whole Lady Gaga stream they did over the weekend, that was all on Zoom. It looks just like what we're doing right here. And the only thing they had better than us was cameras and probably satellite connections, too, because they were really clean feeds. But, like, essentially everybody's using the same technology. Everybody. Because you don't have access to satellite, but people do have access to internet. And there is no This is the best program for setting up windows that are viewable by other people. I mean, this is it. That's why everybody's using it.
And look at SNL, man. SNL is now doing their entire weekend broadcast through Zoom. Now, they're getting pretty creative with it. I get that. But at the same time, the point that I'm making is it levels the playing field. When you cannot rely upon a sycophantic audience, right? When you can't rely upon an audience that's just chock full of just pure sycophants that are going to laugh and respond to whatever way you need to, literally as if there's a producer out in front of them with a big card that says applaud now or laugh now or cry now or whatever. This is the result you get. Pay attention to this interview with Bill Maher right now. Bill Maher interviewing Congressman Crenshaw, but more so it's for twofold reason. Okay, the information is absolutely important to talk about, which we will, but also pay attention to Bill Maher, dude. Bill Maher is one of these guys that he's not the most intellectual person out there, Shine. He's not the most cutting, biting sort of commentary that's available currently, but because of his audience base and because it's on HBO and because he can be slightly more controversial by dropping cuss words every now and then, which he doesn't on this interview, thankfully, but because he does that, he gets away with this persona of like he's the go-to guy, right? Like he's big stuff. He's a big man on campus walking around, and he's to be paid attention to. He's to be respected. Look at how much he struggles during this interview just by himself. Here we go. If I didn't mute it, here we go.
Alex Azar, his Health and Human Services guy, because he was warned. This did not have to happen. Alex Azar.
Trump was warned. It didn't have to happen. Go ahead.
His Health and Human Services guy, January 18th, he warned him about this. And again on January 30th, Trump said he was being an alarmist. Peter Navarro, somebody else who talks to Trump a lot, told him directly January 29th, you got to get ahead of this. February 10th.
2 days later, he implemented a restrictive travel ban from China, which he was widely criticized for. That same day, on January 31st, Nancy Pelosi proposed the No Ban Act, which would be congressional limitation on what President Trump's actually able to do with that travel restriction.
Okay, but he lies about that. First of all, didn't.
How does he lie about it? What do you mean?
He said he stopped people coming in from China.
That exchange
he did
right there. Okay, that's a little bit of what I'm talking about. Normally, when a Bill Maher says, "Yeah, but he lies about that," the audience response would be like, "Yeah, Trump lies all the time." But look at Crenshaw's response here. What do you mean he lies about that? You can't just What does that mean?
No, let me get in on this, Mr. Henry, real quick, because the Democratic talking point or whatever, the anti-Trump, I don't want to say Democratic because it's not about making it about the parties. The anti-Trump talking point over the weekend was this is so hilarious. He didn't really ban people from China because he let Americans come back from China.
Right.
That is literally the talking point.
It's about to be here.
It's no. Is it really?
It is, dude.
And let me just throw this out there, and I can tell you it's a talking point because it was a question in the White House press briefing yesterday. In the White House press briefing yesterday, someone was like, no, you didn't really ban people from China because you let Americans come back. And it's like, what are you talking about? You were mad that he wouldn't let Chinese nationals in at the time. At the time, imagine if he'd been like, no, Billy and Sue can't come back either.
Yes.
Imagine what they would have been like, the tyranny of King Washington. That's what they would have been talking about. Oh my goodness. The apps. One more thing. It's just so incredible that they would even say such a thing in an argument, knowing how false it is. Like knowing how false it is, it just makes you angry. Not because I like President Trump so much. It's because I hate lies so much. As someone who's done, because they're dangerous. Lies, as we discussed last week with the Wuhan virus, how lies are dangerous. But with Chernobyl, how lies are dangerous. Lies are dangerous when you're talking about big systems. And the reason we're alive today, right now, the reason we've only had, 40,000 deaths and not 1 million is because of large systems. And large systems are in danger when people lie. So I think if you can learn anything from the Bible, that's a good thing to learn right there. But anyway, let's get in with this on how Trump was a bad person for not letting Americans come back from China.
Here we go.
With that travel restriction.
Okay, but he lies about that. First of all, didn't.
How does he lie about it? What do you mean?
He said he stopped people coming in from China. He did not. He said he was ahead of it. 43 countries did it before we did. There are still people coming in from China. He only stopped foreign nationals.
Yeah, okay, let me address that because I know that's the people are saying right now. But the reality is, it was about 40,000 people came in after that. These were U.S. citizens and green card holders and passport holders being repatriated. U.S. citizens. So you have to make the argument then that we shouldn't allow them in. And I mean, it sounds to me like you're fully agreeing with President Trump on this when everybody else disagreed with him. And if you're saying that you wish that travel restriction had been more extreme, okay, fine. I mean, you apparently had the foresight back then, but when nobody else did. But the fact is, you know, if Joe Biden was in charge at that moment, he's already said he wouldn't have done it. He criticized it at the time. Nancy Pelosi actually proposed legislation to stop it.
Okay,
so,
but people are still coming in from China. It wasn't just foreign nationals, but let's get off that. Let me just go back to the timeline for a minute.
Let's get off that because you're making me look like a total boob.
He says it's going to go away in April with the heat because he had a hunch. February 25th, he goes to India. This is 4 days after the White House Coronavirus Task Force said we're going to have to lock down on the 25th, that we're going to have to lock down the
February 25th. The day before, February 24th, that's when the administration requested $2.5 billion from Congress to fulfill, CDC, NIH, and FDA funding to combat the virus and the potential spread of it. What happened right then? I'll tell you because I was in Congress and I know what happened. Did we vote on a supplemental funding bill? No. Did we wait days to vote? No, still didn't vote on it. You know what we voted on later that week? Nancy Pelosi, the only thing she would put on the floor to vote on was a bill to ban flavored tobacco. That's what actually happened.
That's the point I want to stop on right now, Shine. Okay, not just looking at how Bill Maher was essentially just decimated in this conversation. And again, look, Bill Maher sometimes gets decimated. I mean, Ben Shapiro's a good one to watch him on too. He's not the best out there. That's not the biggest point. One of the other big points though is like, look, from some of the information that the Crenshaw just put up there, Representative Dan Crenshaw just put up there, dude. If we're going to talk about blame being passed around, which is a worthy conversation, I don't think now is the time to play Monday morning quarterback. I seriously don't. We can do that later on if you want to. That's totally fine. And we should have that conversation later on, Shine, if you want to, because we need to figure out how to not get in this situation again. We need to be prepared for a potential pandemic. We need to be prepared if this potentially comes back in the fall again, for sure. But let's be for real about this, okay? If we're going to be passing blame around, I think the distinction between Democrat and Republican is one that's not healthy to have. And I say that because there is as much blame to go around with Democrats as Republicans. And if you do it that way, you don't solve anything. All you end up doing is trying to get these weird little party brownie points so your guy wins over another guy. It doesn't help move the ball forward at all, because for everything someone could potentially point to a Republican or Trump administration for not following CDC advice here, whatever. I got a video of the health administrator in New York saying like, no, go ahead and show up to the Chinese New Year stuff. There's no problem at all. I have a clip of Nancy Pelosi doing exactly what they just said near the February time. Wouldn't approve funding for anything, but she's going to put some other funding on there for entirely unrelated stuff. All right. So for every Democrat response, there's a Republican response of who you could assert blame to. But the blame gaming itself, who is that helping? Who would that possibly help?
Exactly. Yeah, the virus is to blame. Just like if there had been a tornado or a hurricane or something, the hurricane would have been what's to blame, or the tornado would have been what's to blame. A lot of the other stuff is just teetering around the edges, right? I mean, if there's no virus, then there's no deaths, right? So if you're talking about how many people die, that's teetering around the edges, where the blame is really or in terrorism. You know, we always say like blame the terrorist. Don't blame the mass shooter, or it's the mass shooter's fault, not like laws or something like that. Like that's the reality of it. And I'm with you on it's not. What's so weird is that it's to the Democrats' disadvantage to play the blame game, because there's more blame theoretically, even though it's innocent blame. Like, who would have known how bad this could have been? Who would have known? Man. Who would have known? Maybe like those were actually good opinions because nobody would have thought something could have been this widespread or this easily transmissible, whatever. But considering they didn't know, they were wrong. And there's more blame to go around with them. They have they would be better off if they stopped playing the blame game and started playing patty cake and how can we help? So I think that would have been so much better, because they could have guaranteed when this is all over, Trump would have gone negative somehow. And then they could have blamed him for going negative and doubled down on, look, he's an irresponsible person. We're just trying to help. You know what I'm saying? They could have played this a totally different way. Once again, that would probably have worked. I've said this about the Democratic Party like 4 times since 2016, where I'm like, here are ways you could have beaten Trump. They should just hire me. Like, I could have told them exactly how to play this and it would have worked. They could have just played nice, acted like everybody's best friend, helped as much as they could, got all those Democratic governors on camera as much as possible, not created a partisan divide. They could have raised the profile of people who had talent in the Democratic Party and could have been future leaders for them. And more people would have watched them if they weren't making it a party divide. You get what I'm saying? Just meritocracy, American spirit. The better people would have risen to the top. You would have had more Andrew Cuomo's, is what I'm saying, and maybe some even younger talent on the governor's side. But instead, they decided to make it partisan, and they missed out on any goodwill that could have gone their way or credit that could have gone their way for if this doesn't go poorly by making it partisan. But at the same time, that's just the political reality. The reality is by making certain positions in the debate partisan as opposed to fact-based and meritocracy, which position is better for our country, which position is better for these systems. The fact that we've made it partisan has made that debate dangerous once again, because it's a lie that these positions are partisan. What they are is just ideas. They're connected to people who've had them, not a party. This isn't political. This is administrative.
Yeah, man.
And it's just so dangerous for them to be acting this way. It's dangerous. Because what if we pick the wrong thing because of a political reality and it kills people?
Yeah, man. And every single person out there, every single politician that's making these claims of what to do, when to reopen the economy. Look at what's going on between Cuomo and Trump. Cuomo, every single time he's responding, is wanting to say something to the effect of, I don't want to make this partisan. I don't want to make this political. If you're making this political, you're missing the point. All sentiments that I agree with, for sure. And I'd like to know from the Real News Facebook section as well, if you're watching this back later on, or if you're on YouTube, or if you're watching us on Twitch or whatever else, throw these comments out. But also, if you're watching it back after the live broadcast, throw those comments in there too. We actually go back and check those as well, and I'd love to see where y'all are at, with this question being, what would you like to see the reopening of the economy? How would you like to see that phased in or phased out? Okay, how would you like to see that take place in Tennessee? Have you seen any plans? Glenn Jacobs, Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs, I believe, has a fairly decent plan that he's put out that's actually, indicating, I think it's about a 3 or 4 page plan right now of just some simple suggestions that businesses can do to follow CDC recommendations and a few other things of sanitation procedures and certain number of allowance of people in restaurants. And I mean, it's a full phased in thing for certain industries. Speaking of which, by the way, if you all want to attend this, at the very top of the show notes section there, you'll see in the description of this show in particular, right beneath the title of this program, myself, primarily David Shine Thompson over there, did a lot of great legwork in setting up. Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs will be with us on this program on Friday. Click that Zoom link right up there at the top. You just throw in some registration information. You go straight to the Zoom link. You'll be able to pull questions from the Zoom link, ask Glenn Jacobs about this very question that I'm asking y'all now. How would you like to see some of that phased in stuff? I got a few examples from how Florida and a few other places are doing it, China, unless you want to comment on the thing with Glenn Jacobs.
I do want to just throw out too another program note. We're going to have the Sherry Voluntary on the show tomorrow.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Got her booked over the weekend. Was hanging out with her in one of her streams over the weekend, and I think it'd be great to have her on. It'd be great to have a libertarian on when people are talking about civil liberties. They're talking about, kind of the anti-authoritarianism vibe. That's what that will be the vibe all week long on all your newspapers, television shows. Where's the line between civil liberties and safety? That'll be the discussion. So we're going to bring in a volunteerist, because we've been talking about doing things voluntarily as far as staying home and businesses doing things voluntarily, so you don't have to have the government force you to do it. We're going to have a volunteerist on. If only I could find a hardcore authoritarian to give, maybe or hardcore, maybe not call him that because that's bad framing, right? But someone who's more concerned about safety, maybe someone from the medical field. I'll look into that and see if we can find something like that, just so we have the balance. But we'll have the Sherry Voluntary on tomorrow during the show. I'll probably fall back into behind the scenes. It'll probably be mostly Mr. Henry and Sherry there, but look forward to that. But yes, definitely check out that Glenn Jacobs town hall, because he's been a leading voice in the open things up, or maybe we're going too far space. Mm-hmm. He's been a leading voice in that. Very measured, though. A very measured, mature voice in that space, not a rah-rah voice. So we want to talk to him and see what he knows, because he's getting briefs from the governor and the Knox County Health Department, and presumably probably even getting stuff from CDC or the federal government and stuff like that. So he's going to have some knowledge. He also is the one who's making plans for the future for Knox County. So you're going to want to be a part of that conversation and maybe be a part of the plan by your input. Like maybe you having input changes the reality. And that's what we're trying to facilitate here. So check that out. You cannot be a part of it if you don't register on Zoom. I don't think we're going to broadcast it live, or if we do, we're going to be too busy to check the comments on this live stream, because we're going to definitely preferential treatment the people who sign up in Zoom. So check that out. It's in the show description. It's going to be awesome. But I'm sorry, Mr. Henry, that was a long commercial.
No, you're exactly right. If you're in that Zoom registration, we can pull the comments directly from there. Get your questions directly to County Mayor Glenn Jacobs as well. And speaking of the comments, Kelly just said in Facebook, I presume, responding to my question of what do you want Tennessee to do? She says, now, do it now, open it today, saying there's no reason these guidelines cannot be implemented today. And then a whole bunch of hearts after before Sherry's name. Look, to that point, talking about opening it today, look, on Friday in Florida, Governor DeSantis, he gave some municipalities the green light to reopen beaches, which they did. Reopen beaches with restricted hours and only for walking, biking, hiking, fishing, running, swimming, taking care of pets, and surfing. Okay, what else is there to do on a beach? So even as I just read that, Sean, and so apparently you open a beach is only
no
for
live
walking,
concerts,
biking, hiking,
no
fishing.
live. Those are all individual activities, I guess. So think of it that way, Grant. So they're not allowing driving on the beach because there's lots of beaches on the East Coast, like Daytona and what's it called? Cocoa Beach. You know, basically that whole stretch from like basically Daytona about 100 miles south. You can drive, right? So maybe that's not allowed. Maybe they're not allowing beach volleyball, like group activities, right? I know that. I mean, I used to live in Florida. I'm just saying, like, those things do not describe everything you could do on the beach. There are other things. I hear you. I mean, people have live concerts on the beach. People have volleyball tournaments with hundreds of people watching. You know, people have, what you get what I'm saying. There's commercial things you can do on the beach. All those things you described are individual activities.
No. I totally understand. And it just for some people that are trying to parse this out properly, like the Michigan governor's directive, like if you're going to Home Depot, you can buy essential things at Home Depot, but you can't buy plant products at Home Depot. Then the person might think like, how does that make sense? And the other person might say, well, the intention behind it is if you cut off the sales of plants, less people will go to the store because their intention was to go there to buy plants only or something, right? So that will decrease the number of going in and going out of the stores, which I don't know. It doesn't matter.
If I grow plants that produce food, I don't have to go to the grocery store. How about that?
That's valid.
I mean, here in a month or so, I'm probably going to have like 15 bushels of beans coming off my front porch. I mean, like, and then I don't have to go buy beans. In fact, you can't see it, but I have almost a pound of bok choy growing just 4 feet from my desk. I had to go buy that stuff, though, in the past 4 weeks. And I don't understand how they don't get, like, if people are growing things, they don't have to go to the store as much. Like, why don't people, and maybe it's because these people are city folk, and, like, I don't know. I think everybody in East Tennessee knows someone who's growing food right now. Everyone, at least in my area, the East Knoxville, all the way out to Coreyton, kind of Strawberry Plains. Everyone I know is growing stuff, and there's like becoming a community about. It's like one of the favorite little hobbies people have started since quarantine. I can't imagine those people in Michigan. Think about all those people watching who have done that, and it's helped you in these weird times where you have to be by yourself. Those people in Michigan have not gotten to do that, and that's really unfortunate. Really unfortunate, because it's a healthy thing to do, to grow things. Makes you feel good.
Well, it's also time, man, we're like, well, as these protests are going on, you're starting to see a resurgence in people taking part in their government, taking action, okay? There's a reason why Jefferson always said, like, we don't have a democracy. We have a democracy of those that participate. Now, clearly, we have a constitutional republic, but the obvious point that he was making is you can't really have much to cry about unless you're actually trying to participate in the scheme itself. You don't really have a lot of legs to stand on if you're not out there trying to do something, i.e. either, doing something, petitioning or I don't know, actively lobbying your government or voting at a minimum or something, man. And that's one of the reasons why Sean and I are trying to do as much as we can with setting up interviews like in Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs. Again, go check the Zoom meeting details at the top of the show notes here. Tomorrow's top of the show notes will also have another event that we're setting up with a Metro Council member around here, a guy named Steve Glover. Obviously, you've heard us talk about on this program before of a property tax increase proposal in Nashville that's going through currently. Let's see. I feel comfortable saying now, because this has been reported on by multiple outlets, that they're considering anywhere from a 20 to 40% property tax increase.
Yeah, I saw 40 on a post from a state rep. A post from a state rep was saying, "Whoa, could be 40%." So I feel like that's a legitimate source.
You know the way that these things go, it's a negotiation, since I'm sure somebody's going to start with 40 so you can whittle the way back to a 20 or something, as opposed to starting with a 20.
They shouldn't negotiate like Donald Trump. That is racist. So
well, look,
they shouldn't offer high and accept low. That's too much like the art of the deal, which is probably racist. So
we're also setting up another event for Thursday evening, where we're actually going to be interviewing Steve Glover with another attack for a petition that y'all can sign right now. It's actually on the Real News Facebook page. I'll put that in tomorrow's show notes also. That letter goes directly to council members and urges them, can we do a few things? Can we stop and pause for a second? Now is probably not the best time to be considering a property tax increase. I realize y'all need it, but at the same time, we don't need it. The citizens don't need it. And secondarily, could we consider making some discretionary spending cuts first? Have you gone through everything possible to cut wasteful spending before you're talking about asking me to pay more taxes? Because you've already had a substantial revenue increase over the last, say, decade or so, when 100 families per day are moving into Nashville. What have you done with that money? All right. And as this idea, Shine, of asserting blame is going around, there's one thing I wanted to end the show with this morning that I'm really trying to get people's opinions on here. I'm making a hard transition, but we've heard some of these stories in Tennessee of people going out and buying hand sanitizers to the tune of, say, $15,000, $16,000, $17,000, $18,000 almost worth of hand sanitizer, and trying to resell that on some type of, I don't know, eBay or something. We're hearing similar stories now in Australia of people trying to take advantage of the situation that's currently happening. And this is a little bit of the story that's happening. A guy tried to buy $10,000 worth of toilet paper, paper towels, and hand sanitizer. And when he tried to return it to the store because he couldn't sell it on eBay, this is the response he got.
My first customer yesterday who said he wanted to get a refund on 150 packets of 32-pack toilet paper and 150 units of 1 litre sanitizer. I told him that that is the sort of person that is causing the problem.
That's what he told him, Brandon. Let me skip past this thing.
And I had my first customer yesterday who said he wanted to get a refund on 150 packets of 32-pack toilet paper and 150 units of 1 litre sanitizer. I told him that that is the sort of person that is causing the problem in the whole country.
Return the products. Obviously, eBay refused to let him sell his products, man.
Hey, Grant, just cut it, because I can't. All I can hear is that music. I can't even hear you. So just,
no worries.
Just read what he was saying.
Yeah, that's basically the gist of the story. There is $10,000 worth of products, and the interesting thing about this one in particular in Australia is at the time that this went down, they already had things in place where people could only purchase a certain number of those items for themselves. So they're saying that this customer had to come in with anywhere from 50 to 100 additional people helping him in this scheme, right? So each person had to come in there and individually buy two hand sanitizers per person, 2 rolls of toilet paper per person, and 2 packs of paper towels per person, only to combine all that stuff again later on to try and sell it at an increased price later on eBay or something, right?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing I wanted to end the show with, man, because one, I want to get people's initial reactions to this, and then I'd like to possibly follow up with some other sort of economic research on my end as to price gouging in general. If you're a true believer in free market principles, where does your belief in price gouging economics actually stand? Do you know what I'm saying, man? It's a really interesting thing to bring up in this particular time period, because it goes back to that question of who is trying to exploit what at this particular time, okay? Who's being disingenuous or misleading about particular information, and how much can you exploit during a particular time like this, man, where you're, I don't know, misreporting on something, or in this sense, I don't know, buying $10,000 worth of product and trying to sell it back to someone because eBay's not going to take it for you, man. Are these people just like, are they leeches on society? Should we just be done with them?
I don't think there's a society-wide solution that is required for these people, Grant. That's, I guess, my thing is, like, I think the way that it's been handled is pretty good. Like, there was a market solution. The market said, we're going to restrict how much you can buy. And that the toilet paper and hand sanitizer market is not the only place where they restrict how much supply they release. That happens in oil and all other kinds of commodities and things like that, where they restrict the supply. So that we had a market. Now, in the very beginning, before those restrictions took place, we saw the state intervene and make people donate their hand sanitizer and toilet paper, like in Kentucky, where they made the guy donate his 20,000 bottles of hand sanitizer and stuff like that. I personally think if that ingenuity could be put towards actually filling holes in the market, that would be better off for them from an entrepreneurial standpoint. If they could take all that ingenuity and say, what hole is in the market? Because there's not a hole in the market for toilet paper and hand sanitizer. We have plenty. What there was a temporary supply deal where there was only like a 2-week shortage because everybody went out and bought the stuff. There's not an actual shortage of toilet paper. So like, I think it's a dumb idea because they overstocked on something that is not incredibly valuable, and they're probably going to have trouble getting rid of it. Even if the state was not involved, they're going to have trouble getting rid of it. They're going to have trouble they're going to have to pay to store it probably, because that's a lot of stuff. I mean, you can't just put all that in your garage. So I don't know. I think we're handling it. The market handled it. I don't think the state needs to intervene. And I think those people are stupid, and they probably should have put that entrepreneurial spirit into figuring out a cool way to deliver people food or something. Some kind of cool thing like that.
I agree, because we handled it in a slight free market sense here in Tennessee. I say slight because it was basically a thing of, we went to this guy who bought $18,000 worth of hand sanitizers and said, if you don't do the right thing, the law is right around the corner type thing. Okay. So it was a bit of forced hand, but nonetheless, it was at least in a free market sense. And I bring this question up, man, because this is about the 5th story I've heard so far of people using some sense of price gouging. And it caused me to go back to a survey that I saw in 2018 that was done by an institute in Chicago. I can link that in the show notes if anybody wants to see, but they actually surveyed leading economists in the area and said that only 8% of them agreed with a proposal to prohibit unconscionably excessive price gouging during natural disasters. Now, let me say that again. Only 8% of them agreed with a proposal to prohibit unconscionably excessive price gouging, which means, put in the positive instead of saying the negative. If you put in the positive, it means that 92% of them said you shouldn't try and legislate something against price gouging. It's fine. Let the free market figure that out, okay? Now, 51% of them disagreed with the proposal. 15% said they were uncertain, and 8% said they had no opinion. The economist opposing the proposal argued, much like Shine just said a second ago, that such legislation would lead to a misallocation of resources and lead to lower supply and greater scarcity of the resource itself, or argued that the proposal in question was too vague. All right, and I say that because, dude, it's an interesting thing to consider at the end of the show here when Kelly says this is exactly how everybody feels when you first hear these stories. Kelly just said, nah, that's not how this works. You're APOS is what she said. That's exactly how people feel. Like, on the forefront, if you're going in and you're stocking stuff that you do not need, it's like, no, dude, that's not how this works. You are just a piece of trash right now. Your lowly little neighbor over here who might be elderly desperately needs that stuff. And what, you're going to hawk it so you can make a dime on somebody else's dollar or whatever? But the leading economist here is saying, well, I don't know, man. If you legislate that, though, if you get government involved to force that on people, you're going to inevitably have this weird situation where you misallocate resources, and that leads to lower supply, greater scarcity, and then you actually have a problem. You legitimately have a problem that the free market cannot solve. Where in this situation, the free market is hopefully solving these things, because what ends up happening now, Shine, right? This guy that's trying to price gouge, he can't take it back to the original retailer that sold it to him. He can't sell it on eBay, so he's forced to do something to either sell it to his neighbor at cost or whatever they're going to buy it for,
or give it away to charity,
or give it away to charity. Exactly, bro. Right.
Mm-hmm. Or give it away to not charity. Just give it away. I mean, he could pile it all up in his front yard and say, come get it for free. But that's what I mean by, like, I appreciate the entrepreneurial spirit, but he was misinformed. There's not a shortage. He bought it because, like, saying you're okay with it is assuming that his assumptions were correct. His assumptions were not correct. Now, let's say there was a shortage on toilet paper or hand sanitizer. I'm all about people using the free market to make money. Like, even gas stations. I understand having to raise the price $1 or $2 to make sure that when the next round that person can purchase, they can afford to purchase gas. Because if there's a shortage, it's going to be more expensive. I get that. I understand if I go to the pump during a tornado or a hurricane or something like that, like the day after, it may be expensive because the dude is counting on the fact he may have to, like, privately ship a tank of oil here as opposed to go through his normal supplier. Like, I get it. That's different. I'm okay. I'm actually okay with that, which may not make me popular. The government is not okay with that. But this right here is just people being stupid. There is no shortage, and they're paying for that. They'd been better off starting their own shipping company. Right. They would have been better off going around to all their friends and saying, let me deliver groceries for you, or let me pick up the pizza for you, or whatever. Let me take your kids to school, or whatever. I don't know, whatever. Some kind of thing that fit with this current market condition and gave them an advantage. But less toilet paper and hand sanitizer is not a market condition right now. In fact, paper towels are more scarce, in my opinion. Every time I try to go to the store and find paper towels, there aren't any. There is toilet paper and hand sanitizer.
Hey, by the way, quick recap of the show that we did today. As we're on our way out, it is 10:01. Got in this show, so Shiny, I can get back to our real job here as well. Talked about the protests going on around the country, talking about the protests in Tennessee in particular. Also asked the Real News audience, hey, what do you think is the timeline here? What do you think is the best thing to do? What do you think is the best time to phase this back in? One more quick pitch for the Glenn Jacob events coming up on Friday here. That'll be Friday evening, I'm pretty sure. Go to that Zoom event that's linked at the top of the description page right now, as you'll see in the show notes. Register for that event. We'd love to see you there. I'd love to interact with your comments. You can also see at the bottom of this page, we have some updates on the U.S. has confirmed a full-scale investigation into that Wuhan lab that, by way of possible simple negligence, we might be dealing with the COVID-19 situation we currently have. Nothing nefarious involved, they're saying, just something that, who knows, might have been something that they just kind of let out there. We will be back tomorrow, however, doing it big as we normally do. My name is Mr. Henry, David Shine Thompson, my boy over there, signing off. See you again tomorrow morning.